So 3, 2, 1. Now we are recording. So you can call it to order now, Nikki.
Okay, so we'll call the meeting to order. It's still 6:05. And welcome everybody.
Welcome.
So we'll start with, actually, do we have any public? No. Do we have anyone on the phone?
I don't see any public on the phone.
We do have our nurse here, Annette Jennings is here. You all know her. And although
Good to see you, Annette.
yeah, she doesn't live in Heartland, but she is our nurse and goes to lots of COVID meetings. So it's really great that she's here.
I will do my best to stay. I have 2 kids who are going to be looking for dinner anytime soon.
Oh, nice.
Well, we'll get you to say what you need to say and get you out of here. Okay, so seeing no public and hearing from none, we'll move on to the approval of the minutes. Oh, there's somebody just came. Oh, it's Ed. Hi, so is there a motion to approve the minutes of April 20th?
So moved.
Okay. Was it Scott? Was that a Beth second?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, are there any comments on the minutes? Does anybody have any discussion? No. Okay, so we'll move to a vote on the minutes. They were very long and comprehensive. All those in favor of approving the minutes for April 20th, 2020, please. We're just going to go by ayes and nays again. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thumbs up works. Okay. All those opposed? Okay. So the minutes have been approved. Okay. Public participation. Check that off. Okay. Now we're ahead of schedule. Items for discussion. Actually, is there anybody that has are there any changes to the agenda?
Yeah, I have something to add there. I'm not so sure how to do it, but this is more of a call for, ideas, since, the negotiation work is bringing up just tons of presence of mind about the finances of education in Vermont. And so I wish that at some point we could have a chance to throw around some ideas. That maybe it's not tonight, maybe it's going to be at a virtual retreat.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm looking for.
So now I can't figure out how to put that on the agenda, but let's put it down under retreat.
Okay.
Because normally we would be scheduling a retreat right now, and let's just talk about if we want to do that or how it would look and what we are thinking, all of that. Okay. So I guess I'll turn it over to David for a COVID update. Christine or Annette or anyone else.
Yeah, I can start, and then Christine and Annette can chime in. Again, I think the teachers have done and support staff have done a magnificent job of making this transition in a very short period of time, and I think they're sort of starting to find a little bit of a rhythm. It's an awful lot of work, and it still continues to be, I think, stressful for parents and for students. And here comes Colleen. I just admitted Colleen. But I think we're bearing with it. I sit down sometimes on the pod meetings. Christine meets with the K2 pod, the 3-5 pod, and so I try to sit in on some of those, and I find that the collaboration, the conversation, and the time to do that kind of work in this remote environment seems even more available than when we're in school and we're just kind of going through the pace of the day. So the Only other two pieces. The food program continues to be successful. Craig and crew are working their magic. We do have quite an expense for transporting, but we're not charging that expense toward the food program because we would have been running those buses anyway, and we've all had the bus piece moving. What Craig and I are now talking about with Wendy Moody, who's a coordinator, we're talking about what shape this will take after June 15th, which will be the last day, as you saw in my letter today, the last day of school for kids. And we did get, and I think Beth, you would know this, we did get the extended permission for non-congregational feeding, which means we can deliver food. The problem is, can we deliver food in the manner we've been delivering food? And the general consensus in talking with Craig, and I met with him just this afternoon, is probably not, because those buses are costing us, $1,000 a day, whatever it is. It would chew up any amount of profit that we've got. So what we are going to do is think about a way in which we can centralize locations a little bit better. And we've got, or we will have by the end of next week, 3 cargo vans. Those 3 cargo vans will be able to be driven to as many locations as we can, but it won't be the 44 locations we're delivering to right now. They'll be, somewhat centralized. Folks will have to move a little bit toward the food rather than the food move toward those folks. But I think it's a reasonable expectation. Will we continue to serve 750 meals? Probably not. My expectation is we will probably drop to maybe a few hundred, 300 would be good, maybe 400. But last year we served 100. So anything over 100, and we're doing better than last summer, if you know what I mean. In my letter, there was a little survey, click link, and Angie and I put that survey together, just asking folks, would they continue to eat if we had a few different scenarios? I'm sure everybody would check that they would eat if we continue to deliver it the way we deliver it, but we wanted to see how many people would continue to eat if we didn't deliver it the way we're going to deliver it. So we'll get you those numbers. We'll give you an idea of what that's going to look like. And certainly if anybody has any input when I'm finished babbling here, you can, I know Beth is sending us lots of stuff, good stuff about food program pieces and workshops and some available grants. But our largest expense right now is transportation. But luckily, as I said, we're not charging it to the food service program. That said, the only other thing that we felt parents needed to know soon, and staff, was how this year was going to close, because we were getting lots of questions. So I sent out 2 emails today. The first one was wrong, and that's nobody's fault. It's just a function of, I think, Google Documents, because if you don't refresh your computer, you're going to go back to an old copy of what you've been modifying. And I think that's part of what happened. And so anyhow, we got the correct message out today that the last day of full instruction, well, the seniors, I know that some of you have seniors at Windsor, but the seniors are done on the 29th. Everybody else, the last day of full instruction will be June 9th. And then we're going to plan a few days of enrichment, virtual field trips, special activities, stuff we would have done that last week of school anyway to energize the kids. And those will be morning activities. Afternoon, we'll start some of our professional development. And then we did get the 3 snow day waivers. So we'll also have June 16, 17, and 18 for full days of in-service. So that will be good. I will tell you that I did get, and I think Nikki did too, I did get a couple of responses, only 2. Nikki got 1. So right now we've gotten 3 total to my letter. And I think when I stated in there, maybe more emphatically than I should have, that we will most probably, or could most probably, be remote next year, a couple of people hit the panic button because, they're seeing childcares open. They're seeing some day camps open. So, Nikki wrote back, I wrote back to the two that wrote to me, and I said, of course, we're going to explore all options. And if there are any chances that we could do some in-person instruction, we will. But I will, what I want to make clear, and to the Heartland board as well, is that having lived in that childcare world through my wife for a lot of years, and also through the day camp world myself for a lot of years, if you notice, there are a lot of childcares, even though they can open under guidelines, are not opening under those guidelines. There are a lot of day camps and overnight camps, even though they can open under those guidelines, they are not opening under those guidelines because those guidelines are tough. And maybe those restrictions will lessen as the summer goes on. We'll have to see. But if they stay in that 10 to 20 congregate mode, they stay in the have to have masks on and some level of sanitation. And of course, you would always use the hygiene with hand washing. I mean, I think it's just something that all of our boards are going to have to look at, because I think the question we're going to have to answer, or we're going to have to ask ourselves and answer, is even though we can do it, should we do it? Is it right to do to a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 9-year-old? And I think that's a question we can address better probably in July than we can right now, because I think those guidelines will continue to be updated and we'll continue to look at them. But the point that I wanted to make in my letter was more to justify the time we needed at the end of the year to prepare really for worst case scenario. Because if we are going to be in a remote environment in any way, shape, or form, we've got to get better at our game. We're good at our game, but we've got to get better. And I think the teachers know that, they want that. It's not going to be okay next year, whether we go out for 2 weeks or whether we go out for the first semester. It's not going to be okay to say art doesn't matter, PE doesn't matter, don't worry about music. We're going to exempt anybody that gets a 1 or gets a 2. We can't do that. We have to have a platform that works. We have to have a curriculum that works. We have to figure out a way that we can do this meaningfully for kids so that they are even more engaged than they are this year. So that was my point in the verbiage that I put in my letter. And in general, I would assume the community has accepted it okay, and we'll just keep updating them. I've been trying to every week or two to get another letter out there. And as we get more information, I feel bad that the state has been rather vague. And what they'll do is they'll give you these parameters that are, for example, we're planning the senior graduation at Windsor, and we are following the restrictions we were given, that no more than 10 gathering. That's what Christine is following. And then today, the agency starts to hedge on that. Well, maybe it could be 20, or maybe it could be 25. That's not helpful. It's not helpful. So I think we just have to plan the way we plan with the best information we've got now. And we have to close out this year with some integrity and dignity. And we have to move into the summer with a game plan going forward, whether we're remote or whether we're in person. So if there are questions, or Christine, if you wanted to add anything, or Annette, feel free. Now would be the time.
Sure. Annette, do you have anything to add? I don't want you to have to, if your kids need you.
They're stomping by in their boots, so that's why I muted, because they're stomping by. No, David's correct. It's changing every day. We're gonna have no concrete guidelines until further into the summer. It's going to take a lot of planning on everybody's part to get a school safe in order to keep the kids safe. There's a lot of things we have to look at, and we want to be able to come together as an individual school and as an SU to make sure we can do this for the kids and we do it for the right reasons. So it's just going to take a lot, and hopefully we all can work together to get this done.
And I'll just add, I'll kind of update you on where we're at in terms of end of the year activities. So you're in the loop. We've been meeting, had meetings with 8th grade parents and some kids to plan graduation. Kids are not happy because we made a decision that we will not have any drive-in or drive-up elementary school graduations. The reasoning behind that is, well, if you guys have 8th graders, they might be tempted to really just get out of their car and see each other. So that's a consideration. They're also It's just a liability. I think we're going to allow the seniors to do that by appointment at the high school, one family at a time, but they're adults. And, David, we had a lengthy conversation about it, and that's where we landed as an SU. So we are going to have a virtual graduation on June 13th at 2:00. The parents really wanted a Saturday, so we made that happen. We're going to live stream it. We're working on figuring out how to do that through Google. Larry assures me we can do it in Google Meets. They're updating their platform to make it more like Zoom. So we can live stream it so family members can watch and community members can watch. And we'll have some special things planned. And then at 4:00, the kids and their families are going to meet at the library parking lot, and we're planning a car parade through town. So invite all to be there. I spoke with the Department of Health. They told me no one their cars. So everyone has to stay in their cars. People should be masked if they're in a car with someone that they don't live with. I mean, there are lots of guidelines that we're supposed to follow. The kids are okay with. I think they're accepting it, and it's hard. They asked if at some point when this is over, if they could come together for a live celebration. And I said, absolutely, we can do that. They have a survey out today to figure out if they want to have the money they raise for their field trip given to them in gift cards, or if they want to save it and go on a trip at a later date. So they're going to make that. They're going to make that decision. I figured it was the least we could do is give them some power over the situation. So that's planned. And the end of year staff, we're going to do a virtual staff honoring of staff who are retiring and leaving on the 19th, which is the last teacher work day. I think, as David said, the staff has done a wonderful job. I think we have a lot of planning to do because I think we have to plan for all scenarios because we just don't know what's going to happen. I will say that Angie and I met with the Leader in Me folks last week. I brought Leader in Me to you about a year ago. You probably don't remember. It's Franklin Covey. It focuses on the 7 habits of highly effective kids, happy kids, and people. And we were planning to do some PD after school got out this year. We had some grant money and some budget money to do that. Now that the budget's frozen, we are looking for alternative funding sources. We met with the United Way last week, and they're looking into seeing if they can help fund that training. So that might be something that we do as part of those last few days that we have the staff together. And I think that's it. Although I will say that we did get some guidance today from the BPA on graduations. David, I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, I did. But do you want to summarize it? I did see it, and
yeah, it just basically. I mean, it didn't say that people could be gathering. It just said they've tried to be more accommodating while at the same time ensuring public safety. We do not want a graduation ceremony to contribute to the spread of the virus. So, if you're in a car, parents and families need to remain in cars. One student at a time can pick up a diploma, which is what Tiffany's doing. Students should have masks on. Diploma should be bagged. No handshakes, hugs. You can't arrange for a person to take photos from a distance. And there can't be any lines of graduates or large graduations need to be virtual. So I think we're following. I think those guidelines haven't changed.
yeah. I think what Jay was trying to say in that memo was that's why sometimes we get mixed messages. They're trying to accommodate, all of a sudden the school will come forward with a creative idea. And then, I think the agency's trying to accommodate. The problem is when you try to make everybody happy, sometimes you don't make anybody happy, right? So that's where the complication is. And I know that the superintendents have begged the AOE that once you make a decision, stay with that decision. That's critical because it's a small state. And then word trickles out that, hey, did you know that, Hartford's doing this, or, Spalding is going to do this. And it's like, okay, I guess if that's okay for Spalding, it's okay. But I think it's just I think the planning was well done. I think we'll be fine in the end. I know there are some people waiting till August or to maybe try to do something else, but I think once this is over, we've got to carry on here. And I think Christine has done a nice job shepherding her staff, working with parents. This will, in some ways, as I've said to some of the graduates, the senior graduates, it'll be etched in history. They'll have lots of stories to tell their children and their grandchildren about they were the only one at their graduation. And I mean, it's kind of silly, but I mean, it is true. They can't see it now. They can't appreciate it. And the other thing I think and I don't think this will happen with 8th graders, but we've been warned that at this age, there's a real underground, right? So where are they going to have the underground prom, and where are they going to have the underground class night? And we're trying to keep our ear to the rail on that. But you know what? It's the way it's going to be, and we just have to do what we have to do. I didn't know if there were are there any other questions or thoughts or comments about the end of the year and how this is going to wind down. Katie's on the line too. I don't know how many of you have met Katie Ahern, but Katie Ahern is the new director of student support services. She'll be taking over for Karen Woolsey. And for all practical purposes, she's been pretty busy preparing for summer services. But Katie, you live in a little different world because some of your stuff is required by law. But do you want to just take a minute and talk about what you're going to do with special ed students?
Navigating my mute button seems to be difficult tonight. Thank you. David referred to it a little bit in his letter. For ESY this year, extended school year, the AOE hasn't given us clear guidance on it yet. So regionally, we've talked to the other special education administrators and are trying to make the best guess scenario. And a bit of what Annette said earlier, there's so much to go into planning to have students face to face that we've decided that it had to make a decision. We had too many families waiting for us to make decisions on this. So we're only going to do virtual ESY services. There may be a rare exception, a student who is seeing another outside agency, and that outside agency has got the wherefore to do something face-to-face, and that would have been set up. So we're having those meetings, talking to parents, getting all of those in place. It's not ideal in terms of how this is working for many students who have lots of different learning styles. I have to say the special education staff, teachers, paraprofessionals, everyone has just been as creative as they can be. So we're doing that now, and attempts at thinking about planning for next year, which includes some staffing changes. As I don't know if we've talked about this before at this meeting. As we see a reduction in attrition of paraprofessionals, we are bringing on more case managers. So our caseloads will be much smaller. That's been something across the district we're working on. And when caseloads are smaller, teachers, special educators are able to work closer together and be in the classroom more. So we're working really hard at interviewing folks the past few weeks and catching some really good ones. And so that's been actually an SU-wide effort, both the ESY and that. And we're taking all the guidance we can get from the AOE legal team and statewide administrator council. So that's about all I've got on updates. Not as much as I'd like, but what we have.
Thanks, Katie, and Annette, and Christine, and David. Is there anybody else that has updates?
I just have a question. One waiver for the school meals that was not extended as of yet is the requirement for schools to be at 50% free and reduced lunch to be able to offer summer meals. So that still hasn't passed yet. As far as I know, Vermont has put a specific request into the USDA because it goes state by state, I guess. So I guess we just need to have some sort of plan if, it's not that far away that it'll be the end of the year, or when that waiver expires. So if that waiver expires, what does that mean for Heartland families? There's another way to qualify. It's through, what do you call it? Census data. You basically have to look for certain pockets and where you can deliver those meals. So yeah, so I mean, Wendy's probably totally on this, but just something else to think about if we have to change.
Yeah, that's good.
Because of that, it's just something to realize that hasn't been extended.
Yeah.
And I don't think we can qualify through that census data, Beth. Remember, we looked at it earlier.
No, but I think what we did last year is Windsor did, and well, maybe I don't know. There was something convoluted where we could again become a congregate site, so you could come and get the meals, like Weathersfield came and got them from Windsor, because Windsor did qualify by census data. So we'll keep you posted.
But
hopefully they'll extend that waiver.
Yeah, I would really hope so. It seems a little crazy.
If anybody, because again, this is very much a part of, right? And we're going to see more of this over the next, year or two, that this, everybody keeps saying, when are we going to go back to our old economy? I don't know that we're going to go back to our old economy, right? So we're going to be learning new things. And one of the things we're going to learn is that there's going to, far more people are going to qualify in the short run for these benefits than ever did before. So we just have to stay on top of it.
I don't know what if we have gotten any more forms in during the crisis,
that's a good question. I don't know. Have we, Christine, gotten any more?
We did get a few, not as many as I thought we would, but
got some.
Yeah. So it's always worth pushing it out, but then just keeping Wendy abreast of that to make sure she's having fun with it. Hopefully they'll extend it.
And I know Ed is on the phone. I mean, we'll wait until Ed does his financial, because also there's a financial implication to all this COVID-19 piece, but we'll keep that separate from this COVID-19 report.
Can you use any of that CARES money for summer meals or transportation, David? Is that allowed under the guidelines?
Yeah, Ed would probably know that better than me, but I think if it's a cost you wouldn't have, if you hadn't extended that, and there's two parts of this CARES money too, but one pot is a mystery because nobody can figure out how that, supposedly the governor on Wednesday is that's the big pot. That's the 1.6 billion or something. But then the other CARES money, which is a smaller pot, that's money that, anything that we've coded, like we did buy some additional equipment, and we've been using that code that Ed gave us, the COVID.
Could transportation be coded to that?
And I think some of the transportation can possibly, I don't know. Yeah. But I know we've, like any equipment we had to buy, or packaging that we had to buy, that sort of stuff.
Staffing.
We've just been coding that.
I'm having Linda code the signs that we're getting, the yard signs for graduates, and the mailing of the diplomas and the t-shirts that we're doing. That's all COVID. I mean, we wouldn't be expending that money in that way otherwise.
Absolutely.
Does that sound right, David? I'm looking at your face, trying to read your body language.
I think anything that we can code to that account. The question is, whether or not that money is going to, be enough to go around to all those expenses. But we'll find that out soon, because right now I don't even think we have that initial pot of COVID CARES money yet. But never mind the 1.6 billion, which I think that's where I'm worried that the state could claw back a lot of that money at this point, and we'll just see. Governor Scott has been pretty quiet about what that's going to look like, but I'm sure it's not just even though we on this call think it's all about schools, but there's a whole lot of other sectors of this little state that are deeply, deeply affected by this. So I'm sure I would not want to be in his shoes right now trying to figure out how to dole out all this cash. It looks like a lot, but it goes fast.
I just wanted to let you guys know a member of the public has joined us.
Oh, no, a member of the public has joined us. It looks like Laura.
And Laura. I assume that maybe your comments are related to COVID-19 and what's going on. Is that true, Laura?
Laura, you missed public comment. Do you want to comment now?
Yeah.
Trying to get her volume on. Just find that little microphone and click on it.
If you hit Control D, it'll unmute.
Okay, hi, sorry.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I was just really concerned about the email that came out today. So I'm trying to stay as informed as possible, on the possible, what could happen in the fall.
Yeah, the possibilities.
Yeah, it's really scary for me because, the kids wouldn't be able to continue school I'm not here 4 days a week and they just are not able to do this on their own. And everybody has been so supportive and wonderful. And it's not that at all. It's not a reality for our family for them to be able to do this. And so I'm just really scared on what could happen because I wouldn't want them to be out of school for a year or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thanks, Laura. We spent a little time talking about the fact that we'll be exploring all kinds of options. I mean, the email that went out today was just to sort of prepare everybody for the worst case scenario, because if it ends up being that way, people are going to need time to prepare. Even like you said, the childcare piece is going to be a nightmare for people who have to go back to work or who are back to work and having to work. So I think we're going to get better guidance at the end of this month or the beginning of the next month, beginning of July, into late June, around school specifically and what the guidelines will be. Because once they set those guidelines, and that'll be a combination of CDC, VOSHA, and the Vermont Department of Health, right? They'll come out with these printed guidelines. And then, we'll look at those. Our insurance company will look at those and they'll say, can we do this? And that's when we're going to have to make some serious decisions and around what that could look like. It might be a hybrid model. It might be in person with some restrictions. It might be an alternate. But Steve, when you start talking about alternate, kids go in the morning, some kids go in the afternoon, or there's an A/B every other day they go. That doesn't help somebody like you, right? You're not. If you have to plan, you have to plan, and that's why the only scenarios that make sense in the world that I've looked at and lived in, it's kind of like the all or nothing. Either we're back in or we're out. I mean, I've heard people talk about these. Well, we could 1 week the kids would go, then the next week another group of kids would go. I just don't see. To me, that would be more confusing for families.
Yeah.
If you had to do it that way. So it's not easy, but hang in there with us, Laura. We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
Laura, I just want to say that you're not the only parent. You're the only one that came to the meeting, but there are other parents that have expressed concern, and it's. I think maybe today's email was shocking for those who have not been in these conversations nonstop for the past 2 months. A lot of us that have been in these conversations kind of saw it coming, and I think a lot of us also kind of. I don't want to say it's a foregone conclusion, but to a lot of us, it's not a surprise at all to think that we won't be really capable of going back to school in the fall. And I think that today's email to the general public was a little scary because it came out of nowhere. And it really didn't come out of nowhere. It just was not, we didn't give a lot of preparation in that. But we hope, I think that by sending that email that people will be more prepared for whatever scenario happens, because we have no idea what the fall is going to look like right now.
Yeah. And if we can be back in school, we'll be back in school. I mean, that's the truth. I just know there's going to be a level of anxiety no matter what happens, right? Because you've got staff, we've already gotten emails from parents who say, look, if we have to go back next year, can we keep our kids home? We really don't want to send them. So there might be some of that goes on too. So hang on tight. We'll keep you posted, and the sooner we can let folks know, I think the better.
Okay, so unless there's anything else on the COVID update, what was that?
No, I think we're good.
Oh, I thought I heard somebody speak. Okay. Ed, I don't know if you were planning on taking time to prepare for during hires and resignations, but I would move you up on the schedule if you want to get on with your evening.
Do you want to go now, Ed?
That sounds good to me.
Okay.
All right.
If everybody else is okay with it,
Yeah, and you all
give me a head nod.
Yeah, you have the financial report, but I'm going to put it up on the screen for those of you who don't have it. All right.
I have to say I love Ed's hat. Go Wisconsin.
Okay, so Ed, we're on that first page.
Okay, so David, can you make that any bigger?
Yeah, let me see what I can do here. I think I can. How's that?
Good. Yeah, that's good. So the board members are used to seeing this. Is kind of the format we've been using for a while now. The first column is, of course, the budget, then what we're expecting to get by year end, and then the year-to-date actuals. So as you can see, the only thing we're really waiting on is the state aid for transportation. And as David said earlier, there was a question as to whether or not the state was going to reimburse us a normal amount of money, meaning as if we were still in school from March 8 till the end of school. And I think it's been decided that they are going to reimburse the full amount. So we're expecting to get the budgeted amount, or they're close to it. So the revenue, as you can see with everything that's in there, is going to come in at about a little over 100%. As you move down to the expenditures, you can see there that there's a couple of areas. The wages are right about 100%. Benefits are about 90%. But benefits don't include the HRA expenditures that will be made between now and the end of the year. So the report's from the 15th of May. So that means we've got 6 weeks left in school or in the fiscal year. So there could be additional costs associated with the HRAs that will move that benefits up to 100%. Maintenance and repair is over by 11.81%. That's because two things. One is that back in February, the boilers cracked to the tune of a $18,000 repair. In addition to that, there were ventilators, classroom ventilators to clear the rooms. There was a cost of about $13,000 to fix those as well, to keep the air quality safe in the building. So Scott had asked me earlier why those didn't come out of capital reserve. Well, they're not planned expenses. That's primarily what they are. They're expenses that they're breaks. They're fix and breaks. When we use the capital reserve in Heartland, it's generally a planned, or it has to be a planned expense because it has to go to the voters. So that's why that's over.
Before you keep going down, can I go back to benefits for a second?
Sure.
Did you estimate any encumbrance for the HSA or whatever it's called?
No, I did not.
Did you? You have not. So we will plan on that going up. It may not go to 100%, but it will definitely go up.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Transportation's a little under because you don't do those field trips. The postage is communications, insurance, and postage. Your insurance went up a little bit higher than what we had budgeted. Tuition is the big one. I sent a separate sheet for tuition to highlight what had gone on. And what it points to is that Heartland has seen you've gotten 10 more students than we budgeted, almost 10 and a half. And that's a trend that we've seen over the last few years, in that there's a lot of people moving in, seemingly, some would say to take advantage of the choice but I can't say whether that's true or not, but it does have an effect on your budget, and you can see the effect it's having here. In addition to that, you had some bill back from FY19 for tuition, meaning when we do our final report, like in the summer of this year, we'll do a stat report for FY20. And from that stat report, the state then calculates what they consider the allowable tuition, and schools are allowed to go back and bill if their allowable is more than 3% over the announced. And in the case of Woodstock, they did bill back almost $25,500. Capital equipment, that was a dishwasher. The kitchen dishwasher had to be replaced, and that was $14,700, I believe. No, $14,405. So that blew away that budget too. But again, that was a break and fix kind of thing. The thing was busted. We had to fix it, and again, it couldn't come out of capital reserve because we didn't know it was going to break. So as you get down to the bottom, what I've highlighted is your $43,793.73 in the red right now. That could change. It could get closer to zero, but I think it's pretty close to what's going to happen by the end of the year. I think you will end up in the red. I want to highlight on the expenditure side at the very bottom. There's that where it says dues, fees, and transfers. That $41,000 is right at the very bottom. Dues, fees, transfers. There's a budget of $81,000, and there's an encumbrance of $41,998.88. That is currently what the subsidy would be to the food program. Okay. So the food program right now would be needing a $41,000. The budget for that was $81,000. So, yeah, $81,640. So right now you're not having to subsidize the food program with as much money, and what effect it has at the school at the general fund is that the subsidy is lower. So you could see from that line you're 58% spent. So you're saving money there. Once we get the final numbers in for the food program, that number could go down in addition because we are seeing higher reimbursement rates for the summer meals program. So overall, that's where we are right now with your financials. I did want to speak a little bit about this whole CARE thing and project code and the potential to reimburse monies are for spending that's in addition or not wouldn't normally be part of spending in a year that didn't have COVID. I think Christine said it best when she said the signs and the other things she highlighted would be things that she wouldn't normally have bought in a normal school year. Okay. I think that's going to be the litmus test for this thing. Now, that doesn't mean like the summer food program, the transportation and all of that. I think with the lunch program that went from the 18th to the end of the school year, possibly they'll give you some money for the transportation because yes, that wouldn't have been spent in a normal year. But the summer food program, I don't see that. And that's in a new fiscal year. So I'm not seeing any real aid coming out of, or this CARE money being accessed for stuff this coming fiscal year. In addition to that, I've been getting a lot of emails from the state, and I'll give you a paragraph out of a very long email. So the Joint Fiscal Office has asked Brad James to get an estimate from all the schools for what they consider to be cost beyond what they would normally have spent. All right. And he says, please do your best to give me a dollar estimate of the unexpected costs you have had since the middle of March. The Joint Fiscal Office is trying to get its arms around the deficit in the FY20 Ed Fund. That will be rolling forward into the 2021 Ed Fund. They, along with several regular legislative committees, are trying to see if the Corona relief funds the state's CRF received can be used to cover these costs. These funds have pretty stringent rules governing how they can be used. Okay? So what that's pointing to is they're trying to figure out how to use the money that the feds have said should be used for next fiscal year in this fiscal year. Okay? So you have to be careful when you start talking about costs that you're going to get covered by any care money, because really there is no formula yet to determine what costs could potentially be paid by the care funds, or if the care funds will be used in that way. It might be used to offset the deficit for FY20, and it might be used to offset, if they can figure out a way to offset what they projected the last time I looked, $160 to $180 million deficit in the FY21 Ed Fund. So you have to be fiscally careful. I think what Scott said earlier, I don't know quite how you proceed, because there has been no guidance from the state on how they'll proceed in September. But I mean, it goes as far as to say, like, if you're in a situation where you've got to do hiring, do you hire now with the idea that you're going to pay everybody coming in and then not have school? So it's, I think there's going to have to be a lot of thought given, and I don't think, unfortunately, the state's going to give us any real input on how to go about this. I think it's really going to have to come from the school boards and from the superintendent's office on how to proceed. You guys are going to have to figure out what you want to do as you go into the new fiscal year, knowing that there's going to be a significant deficit in the state ed fund. Now, the wild card in all this is, if the $3 trillion package that Democrats have passed in the House gets passed by the Senate, $3 trillion, the $160 billion that we're short in our ed fund is a rounding error with $3 trillion bucks. So I would say that we're in a position where we could potentially have the feds guarantee full funding, but that's all speculation. So I know I've given you a lot to think about, but Scott's right. You got to have a consensus at the board level. How do you want to proceed with hiring, with ordering supplies, with all of those things that the beginning of a normal school year encompass? Because everyone's looking. You're not going to get guidance from the state. It changes by the hour. I've gotten more emails about this care money, and every time I get an email, it's, oh yeah, but this, and oh yeah, but that. There's no real consensus at the state or federal level on how this is going to proceed. Other questions?
And did you want to go over that balance sheet, or you want to wait for questions first?
I don't think I gave him a balance sheet.
Yeah, I've got one attached to what you sent me, but we don't have to do it. It's very simple.
Did I send one? Oh, I hope I did. Oh, no, go ahead. We could do the balance sheet. I thought I forgot it.
Hold on, we're getting there. There it is, right there.
Okay, so in Heartland, when we talk about the general fund, we're set up in a fund accounting system, so there are separate funds for separate pots of money. Normally what it is each one of them has a specific purpose. So the general fund is the one we always talk about. We're constantly talking about the general fund. Then there are other funds. The funds that are set up in here right now: Fresh Fruits and Vegetables, 17 Acre Wood, Rise Vermont, capital improvements and renovations in the capital reserve. Those funds are funds that we set up when we went over to the new e-finance and state mandated chart of accounts. So we had to break fresh fruit and vegetables out because they set up a fund in that. So that's why we did that. 17 Acre Wood is specific purpose. So we set up that. Okay. Rise Vermont is a grant that we get, you apply, you basically get the money, and it's earmarked for different things. Capital improvements is self-explanatory. It's the money that you guys have set aside to do any kind of improvement that you can get passed by the school board. And the renovation capital reserve was a fund that they set up, but I don't know, I must not, I put that in there because at the beginning I thought we were going to have it. You guys don't have it. So what you have is 5 funds, and you can see what the balance was at the beginning of the year, the revenue you received, and the expenditures that you've had this year. Now, let's look at the general fund. The general fund is showing a $591,698.06 surplus there. So why doesn't that tie out with the $43,000 deficit that I just showed you? That's because with what I'm showing you here in this fund balances is what we actually have. There's no encumbrances or no receivables in this. So when you're looking at this, the revenue for FY20 is the revenue that you actually have gotten. There's nothing in there of we're going to get this for transportation or this or anything else. That's what it is. In addition to that, there's the expenditures don't have any encumbrances. So there's no health, there's no wages. That's where we are as of the 15th. And that's the same with every other one of the funds. But those are your funds. Those are your 5 funds. So in the past, you guys have asked me what's in your capital reserve, what do we have in other monies? That's it right there. That's the whole enchilada.
Thank you, Ed. Is there anybody that has any questions for Ed?
Yeah, I think that just a quick comment. I think Christine and I talked today. We're going to do a deeper dive into that tuition because, that is a nail biter every year, and it just seems to crush us every year because it's how do you plan for that? Because if you were to budget for 5, and I've done this because I've worked in tuition districts before, you budget an extra 5 students, and people are going to tell you you're padding your budget, right? And this year, how could we have sold a budget with, we do have the accurate numbers in there, but should we have added 5 more? That's the part that's, matter of fact, I think you've got is it a small 8th grade? Is that why we were able to save a little money next year on tuition? But if you tried to add 5 new kids, but it is an issue. And I think what Linda and Christine and I, and maybe in consultation with Ed, need to do is look at those bills, see which kids we recognize, which kids we don't. Because it could be, it's not just a 9th grader, it could be a 10th or an 11th or a 12th grader that moved in, right? Either way, we're paying for that. So I think we've got to figure that out. The other piece is capital improvement. And I don't know, this is probably not going to be the best year or next year to do this, but we do get restricted with your capital improvement budget. For example, if that dishwasher had broken at Weathersfield or Windsor, we would have probably used capital improvement monies to repair it. We would have gotten board approval. But the problem is we can't respond to those in the moment capital needs, as Ed called break and fix, because you're restricted by that clause from a town meeting before I got here that says you've got to bring any capital improvement items before the town. So I don't know whether the town would be willing to reconsider that at some point, because it does tie your hands, and you would have been on a couple of those items that Ed went over tonight. It would have been to your, it would have helped your bottom line if we could have used the capital improvement money for capital improvement, which is essentially big repairs and improvement. So just those 2 comments. We don't have to decide anything tonight, but I think we should keep that on our radar. Any other questions for Ed? And we are going to do a more comprehensive food budget at some point. Ed's already started that, and Craig has. we've, as Ed said, we've been bringing in, since March, substantially more revenue. So we'll balance this out and try to come up with a way, because all of a sudden the summer program also, as you know, we incorporated Mount Scottney sooner than we thought we were going to incorporate Mount Scottney, and we sent cafe services away a little earlier than we thought we would do that. So all of that will hopefully work to the good, but we'll come back with a report in June or early July, just kind of taking out this food program. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I had something to say. And so in regards to, and you perfectly explained it, Dave. I was wondering about that, the avenues for using the capital improvement money, just like you explained, and it is burdensome, the way it is figured right now, or the way it has to happen right now. But I think that it would be worth bringing that, presenting a different plan to the voters. And because it reminds me that the voters just passed in March. They gave us permission to borrow from that fund temporarily. So I think they can see that it could be, it would make a lot of sense for us. And it's obvious in a year like this that some of these expenditures that are weighing on the current budget right now don't belong there.
Yeah, and Nikki, you and I could chase the actual. I don't know when that was warned. I know we did some research on this a couple of years ago, and somebody said it was during Judy Cowan's one of her final years, and the town was all angry, and they voted to put this restriction on the capital fund. But the other thing I could do is I could also, if we could dig out that original motion and what year it was, I could run that by our attorney too, because we found out. I was talking to Pietro about another issue in one of our other towns, and quite frankly, sometimes the towns at their warned meetings take more authority than they're actually by statute able to take, right? So it would be good to have that research done, because, in the case I was looking at in Wethersfield, Pietro said to the board, ignore that, because the town couldn't have voted that, because the board has the fiduciary responsibility and the ultimate authority over this particular. It wasn't a capital reserve fund, it was another fund. And they said, a town can't restrict the current board's hands with how you spend the money. So sometimes they make these floor votes, or they make these motions, or they warn these articles, and they think they've got the authority, but they don't. So I'd be willing to do a little bit of research on that. I think it might be worth it, because I agree with Scott. I think it ties our hands, and all of a sudden, if that boiler were to blow, or the air handlers were to go, I mean, you can't wait, so you've got to spend it, and it's tough to do it in arrears. So, just a thought.
It also,
I agree.
It ties your hands. I mean, that boiler is pretty old, right? I mean, I believe it's like 50 years old. So at that point, do you put money into fixing it, or do you spend the money to update it?
Yeah.
I don't know the answer, but if you had the funds available, sometimes it makes more sense to not spend, $25,000 fixing something
but to buy a new one. Yeah.
Replaced. Yeah.
Ed, what did you say is in the capital reserve now? I could go back to that page, but what's in the capital reserve right now for Heartland?
365,800.
Okay. Yeah. And obviously in these financial times, we haven't been able to roll large surpluses into that capital reserve, but that might not happen for a little while. So not that we want to spend it wildly, but it's nice to have it on a $9,000 dishwasher repair that you hadn't planned for.
Yeah, definitely.
Hey, thanks, Ed. Good job.
Thanks, Ed. Any other questions for Ed? So, David, you are presenting to us the screen that you're looking at still of everybody.
Oh, so you don't have my screen on here?
Yeah, no, we still have your screen, so we can see all of people's thumbnails on your screen.
Don't you like to see everybody like that?
I do, except I can make them bigger on my screen.
Oh, good.
There, now they're bigger.
There you go. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Oh, okay. So Ed's already gone. Thank you, Ed. Okay, so now we're moving on to hires and resignations.
Yeah, and probably Christine has a better handle on this with Katie.
Yep.
So you want to report out on this?
Yep. We received, I sent it along to Diane, so I'm sure she got it to you. Pollock's resignation, which you knew was coming, but it's official. He's been hired by Hartford for that high school math position. So that's the only resignation I have. I do have a hire if David completed the conversation with the music person.
That's the music person. I did not get a chance to do that today, but I will. Yeah.
So
And you said you wrote back to me, I think on Thursday or Friday, and said she's definitely interested in the 0.6, right? Yeah.
yes. So I'll hold off on sharing that name until you finalize that.
Okay. And
Can you tell us a little bit about her, or that?
No, you
Yeah.
disclose?
Tell you a little bit about her. She's from the local area, which is nice, and she has a year. She had a year at Thetford as a music teacher, and went back to get her master's degree this past year. So she's been doing some subbing while finishing that up. So she loves music, and I think the kids will really enjoy having her. She has a and I'm not a music person, but she uses a variety of methods. I think I'm getting that right, Brittany. And there's different music. I'm learning a lot in these interviews, actually. So
we relied on Jamie quite a bit to be like, what is she saying right now?
So, but yeah, I think she'll be wonderful. So
That's fantastic, because I know that was potentially a hard sell to get a 0.6 person on board.
Yeah, it is for sure. But I'm almost positive that she'll take it. So
yeah, I'll contact her in the morning. Somehow that fell off my radar today, but I'll get to her.
I told her it might take you. I told her not to panic if you didn't call her, that day.
Yeah.
That you're super busy, so she was fine with that.
Yeah, that's good.
I think we are the only hiring that we're still trying to complete is middle school math, and what we, in our shifting of things, in lots of meetings with staff on scheduling for next year, Beth Ziegler, who was 6, 7, 8 math, is going to be 5, 6 math with the team of Michelle and Anne, and Janine will do Spanish. So she's gonna slide in that direction. So we're looking to hire a 7, 8 math person. The ad is written as 7, 8 math, middle grades, but we're also looking for someone with additional certifications so that we have options in the future. I don't know that we'll find somebody, but that's how the ad is written. And Beth does hold that. Beth holds both a middle level math and a K-6 elementary, so she can move among grade levels. But if you have a middle grade, I think it's 5-9. Is that correct, David? 5-9 is middle grades. Yeah. So that's where we're at. Katie, I'm sure, has some special education hiring updates. She's probably got to get her notes.
No, you just cued the dogs to start barking for some reason. So I don't know. So in special ed, we have one resignation. Actually, I realized tonight that it wasn't put in writing, but we do know for certain that Mary Beth Beck is moving out of state, so she will not be returning next year, which makes us all very sad. But I have made sure we're getting it in writing. But so we are interviewing for her position, which would be the middle school special ed, along with Donna Hatch, as well as one other position. We're replacing, as you know, or probably aware of, we had Heartland won the game of paraprofessional roulette last year of just not being able to keep people, not through any fault of anyone's, just it came in a wave and we got hit really hard with it at Heartland. So we instead are going to beef up having one more special educator at the elementary, at the early grades, most likely K4, depending on how everything sugars out. So we're actively interviewing for those two positions. We have one person we've made an offer to. We're waiting. It's a tough job market. As Christine said with others, that we've people are getting lots of offers, and we're trying to make ourselves look as awesome as we are and convince people that we're the district to come to. And then also, which does affect Heartland, but SU wide, looking at the other positions we're trying to fill are speech language pathologists. And I got a second yes today, Christine, yay. I know, waiting for people to say yes has been finding them and then waiting for them to say yes. So we're just waiting for one other, which will help us bring in-house more expertise and cost control over who we have, both for supervision, Trish at the Heartland and district wide. So I'm really excited about that. We're getting some really good people there, but we're competing too. So, and we are holding off hiring any support staff until we have a better idea of what next year will look like. Professional staff, no matter what environment we're in, we have to have. That's we have to deliver special education services in one format or the other. And it does keep people kind of waiting, but hopefully we'll be able to make those decisions as soon as we can. But that's the news on our front.
I had one thing I forgot to mention. We were holding off on the halftime interventionist to replace Teresa Semantic, and I am assuming you would like me to continue to hold off on hiring that position a little bit longer, or?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of, that's up to the board, but to me, it just feels like we don't even know what's going to happen.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I totally get it.
Yeah.
I think it's good to hold off.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah, I think so.
Yep.
Katie, thank you for your update. That's really good news on all fronts. And I personally am excited that we're going to have more special educators, and hopefully that'll create a little bit more stability.
It's a good plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The goal of having caseloads closer to 13 to 14 at the most. Some will have less depending on the student makeup. We're not strictly going by numbers. We're also trying to balance what students' needs are. And yeah, it is in every building in the district. We have addressed it, and it's exciting. I'm excited about the people we're bringing on. It's going to mean a lot of in-service training next year to bring everybody kind of up to speed, because some people are coming from different places in the country. We're being very careful. I think Christine's seen this in several of our interviews. It's a joint effort across the SU to get everybody involved in the decisions, but also not just taking people because we need people. We're being pretty selective, checking references, listening to our gut. So it's been a good process. I've enjoyed getting to know people throughout the district, or the SU rather, in this process. So thanks, Nikki. Yeah,
and I really appreciate it. I think that's been something that needed to be fixed for a bit, and then I'm happy. Okay, so we officially just need to accept Halleck's resignation. We didn't get the resignation letter, unless somebody else did. I don't know, Christine, if you just want to read it to us, if you have it handy, and then we can go ahead.
You talking about Halleck's?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it did in this environment, it comes in different forms and who shares it with who. But but I think Christine, you've got it there, right? I could probably find it too. I think
Christine, you're on mute. I think you're just looking right now, but just in case you try to read.
I have it. I'll read it to you. Yep. Dear Dr. Baker and Heartland School Board, please accept this letter as notice of my resignation from my teaching position at Heartland Elementary School. When my current teaching contract expires on June 30th of this year, I was offered a job working in the Independent Learning Center at Hartford High School, and after careful consideration, decided to accept the offer. I grew up in Hartford, continue to reside there, and the chance to teach in the school system that my children will attend was one that I felt I couldn't turn down. Please know that the decision was a tough one for me. This is my 10th year teaching in Heartland, and I would like to thank you for 10 amazing years. I have grown immensely as an educator while working at Heartland. The staff and students are amazing. It has been a pleasure teaching in Heartland, and I will always treasure my time working here. My decision to leave is not a reflection of my experience at HES. I am leaving to take advantage of an opportunity. I wish the student, staff, administration, school, and supervisory union all the best. So that is the letter. Do you need me to share it with you, anyone, or?
That was good enough for me.
As long as you've got it. And I assume did we send it to Tina? It should go in that personnel file, but if you want to send it to Tina, that would be good. Yeah.
Yes, I did. I sent that letter to Tina and Jay.
I thought so. Yeah. Thanks, Diane. I thought you did. Yeah.
Okay, so at this point, I would take a motion from anyone.
I would make a motion to accept Holly Stone's resignation with regret.
I can second.
Sarah, Beth seconded.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of accepting Halleck's resignation with regret, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. So we've accepted.
Kind of a quick question around this, in that, like, there's some teachers that are moving on and there's no closure for the student end of things. And I just know I have a student that is going to be heartbroken, and I'm not, something with like Miss CH and things like that. Like, is there something we can do for I don't know, like, I'm not sure. Like, how to, like, is there some sort of goodbye or some sort of closure to give the kids to?
Miss CH was in a meeting this afternoon, the K2 pod, and she was talking about that. And she also, it's really sad, really, really sad and hard because, right, she doesn't get to say goodbye in person. So yes, thinking about how to do that. Today we talked about Step Up Day, and we made the decision to wait. Actually, we don't want to have kids step up and then not go back to school in the fall, and maybe it looks a little bit different. Maybe the same teacher for a little bit. We don't know. So yeah, I will make sure we figure out how to do that, Beth. And any ideas are welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help how we can.
Okay.
Thanks, Beth. That's an important comment. Okay, moving right along on the list. Statewide update. Thinking at the state level how the crisis is dealt with for next year. I think we've kind of covered this.
Yeah. Nikki, you've attended some of those. Did you attend some of those joint fiscal presentations?
Those awful presentations, yes.
Yeah. I think we pretty much talked about it.
Yeah, the one question that, and I guess I'm kind of looking for a gut read. It's not really a discussion point, but do you really think the state is going to leave supervisory unions and districts out there hanging to make their own decisions as to whether or not to open up? Or do you think that there's going to be some statewide? Because that's what some parents expressed a concern about, is that the districts are going to be deciding on their own. And to me, that just seems like chaos and not appropriate. So
well, it's one of my biggest fears, Nikki, and it sort of goes back to what Laura said, right? In her fear and her anxiety. And what I fear is going to happen is, I hope it doesn't happen, but you can see what they did to the day camps and the overnight camps, and you can see what they did to the child care centers. They say, you may open, and if you can follow these guidelines. And what that means is added expenses. It means added pressure. It means added anxiety. It means you've got to know a whole lot about health and science as you go forward in trying to meet these guidelines. And that's what I'm afraid of. I'm with you, Nikki. I wish they would just say close for the first semester, or everybody's going to be open the first semester, and we will walk you through how this is to happen. And
I didn't realize it was possibly district by district.
Yeah, I've just got a nagging gut feeling here, right? Because, and then, so what happened with summer school is there are a couple of schools who were able to get their hands on the PPE equipment, right? And all of the, all of the masks and the sprays and there's one or two districts in the state that are going to run summer schools. But, a lot of the others, that stuff, Jim can't even get his hand on and luckily he's stocked up on sanitizer, but it's back ordered now, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, if not more than that. So it's crazy. I see Katie's got her hand up. But.
Yeah, Katie. You're on mute though.
Yeah, you're muted. Is that because of those dogs?
My thing jumps up every time I try to get it, and the Control D doesn't work on the Mac. I've tried. So just last week, just to hit on that, Nikki, and to follow up on what Dr. Baker said, it was suggested that. Sorry, my phone was on.
You got it all going.
It was suggested. Busy Monday night. It was suggested that SU send out a survey asking parents about what they would prefer for ESY, for in-person or out. As a regional special ed administrators, we all went, what? We all had to make these decisions already, and asking parents for their input, which there is a place where totally you ask parents for their input. That wasn't it. But whether we did in person or not, it gave the illusion that we would be giving people a choice, which we can't. We really, so that came from a meeting that happened on Thursday or Friday last week that we got the feedback from. So in all honesty, that they're still trying to figure out and want information from us, but things are coming out really late. Several weeks after we're getting the guidance of how we're supposed to word things, or this particular survey. So the need is great for direction, because I do think we'll see huge differences in how we're approaching it based on who got there first. It'll be a competition for PPE equipment and all the rest of it. I mean, I'm not an expert in any of that. And that's actually one of the big reasons why we can't do in-person ESY. We don't have access to all of that to get it. So I just, that they're looking for feedback and we're looking for direction. And we're not getting, I don't think we're getting very far. And I don't know how well, other than to make sure our legislators know and others to get some sort of decisions made.
I think if they would centralize that, and centralize the PPE and centralize the guidelines and centralize, all of that piece, work with the insurance companies, I think it would be just a lot easier. But I just, for some reason, I don't see that. The other thing that worries me a little bit is I'm seeing a lot of, the whole state of California university and college system is not going to open first semester. Boston University, not going to open first semester. Now that could change, but I don't know. Has anybody heard anything about our state colleges or university systems or Dartmouth? Has anybody heard any word about any of that? I see Annette's hand up and Christine.
Yeah, I know UNH is going back to in-person in the fall. Dartmouth is a hybrid, some on campus, some distance learning. I think people are just trying to figure it out, and UNH's decision could change. I mean, they're planning for it, but with the language that says this, it could change.
So Annette had her hand up for a bit.
So I've taken on the role as the representative at the state level for the school nurses for the SU. And we are right now trying to prepare guidelines, working with the state, the Vermont Department of State and VSSNA, that's the Vermont School Nurses Association, so that we can put some guidelines out there along with the state to present to school nurses of how we can go about. And we're looking at lots of different other states, including Denmark and Japan, of how they've tried to enact going back to school. So we're working really hard on it. PPE is a really big, popular, hot topic because we're not sure how are we ever going to get the PPE that we need to open schools. I know the VSSNA is working really hard with the governor to try to use some of the CARES money to provide the schools with the PPE that we need. But again, where are we going to get it when it's already so far behind and being ordered and stuff like that? So, we're trying really hard to try to get some guidelines put together. We're working twice a week, if not 3 times a week, in groups to get some of this stuff done. And
no, that's great, Annette.
Yeah.
So you might even know sooner than the rest of us to some degree around the guidelines, but
right around the same time you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
The tricky part is, colleges, although it's not ideal, college kids can manage virtual learning. They might not choose it, but they can do it. When they could manage in school keeping themselves 6 feet apart, right? They're older, they have more skill, but I just think about our kindergarten and our first grades, and I'm like, oh my God, how will they stay in a square and not get out of their seats and not hug their teachers and not cough all over each other? And it's mind-boggling. But
yeah, and I saw a video. I don't know, it might have been Denmark or it might have been Tokyo. I forget it was, but I saw a video of kids in a classroom, and what they did is they built bubbles around the kids, but that's when you have to stop and you have to think, is that ethically and morally okay? To get an economy going or to get childcare under control I get the education piece. I get it. But that's the part that scares the life out of me, because I just don't want a system that looks like a moonwalk. It doesn't make sense to me, but we'll do what we can do. And I know people with good minds and good health backgrounds like Annette are going at it. I just hope the state takes the bull by the horns and it's because what we don't need is another press conference. We really don't. We need direction about who's going to provide what, when, and how. That's the key.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I actually learned a lot more out of that discussion than I thought I would.
There you go.
Thank you, Annette. And everybody else, and Katie, everybody that hears what's going on. I think that is valuable. Sarah, go for it, Sarah. You're on mute.
You're muted, Sarah.
There we go. Sorry about that, guys. It might be worthwhile to send the link to this meeting to John and Zach, and just say, here, this was our discussion. You need to know that we have these concerns, and as our representatives, we're asking for clear guidance, and we're asking for some forward thinking on acquiring the stuff we need if we can even think about opening in the fall.
Yeah. I will do that, because you'll all get a link to this, but I'm the only one that can open that up and make it shareable. So I'll make that a shareable link, and I'll send to both John and Zach.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you, David. If you could CC.
I'll CC you, Nikki.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, that would be helpful. Okay. Moving right on.
Oh, maybe our senators, maybe our 3 senators too. I was just thinking. So John, Zach.
Who are they? McCormick? No, McCormick?
McCormick, Allison Goodenough, Clarkson, Allison Clarkson, and Alice Nitka down in Springfield.
Okay.
Thank you, David. That would be really helpful. Yeah, I think it sounds like we're all having the same fear.
No doubt.
And then one of the articles, this isn't very reassuring, but I did read a nationwide article today of, well, let's see what happens with the summer camps that open, and that'll guide the future. So they're going to be the guinea pigs, and we're going to watch what happens. So that's not encouraging either. Okay. So Katie, I think you're back on with a special education update.
which you might have already given.
Yeah. You're on mute again.
She's working on it.
Okay.
It's Command D on the Mac, Katie, not Control.
Command
Thank
D.
you.
Command D.
My mouse is or trackpad is sticky, so it does make it jump, I think. So I don't think, other than what I've already said, I have much of an update. We are, I guess the only other thing I hadn't mentioned, for any students that were in the evaluation process, we are talk about guinea pigs, but we are, Leota, our school psychologist, is going to be working through doing some virtual assessment with students that we figure can do it with, that we feel that will get accurate results. They have the reliable technology, they can sit at a computer, that their parents aren't giving them the answers, like with any test, kind of stuff that's going on. So she's reaching out so we anticipate a backlog of assessments, so we're trying to get ahead of it. And Leota was chomping at the bit to do this. So, and Sandy is also, our SLP is also going to do that. It may affect a very few amount of students, but anything we can get ahead of before we're back in person or while we're still waiting for this. Because one thing that hasn't changed, none of our guidelines, none of the timelines, none of our guidelines from the feds have been changed. They have not wavered on anything. So we still have to hold ourselves to the same standards. We have to fill out delay paperwork. It's actually created quite a burden of paperwork on special educators, to be frank, of having to over document and do things because, and I do understand the protections because that's all these pieces and parts that we do logistically and legally are with protections by Annette. But at the same time, we're creating more work for people. And the special educators have been phenomenal about trying to keep up with that. But it's exciting to look at what virtual testing will look like. And the companies, David, this is a plus. Up until June 30th, it's free. So our testing company, we're not going to incur any testing company costs until after July 1. So we were happy to hear that. So that's probably it, other than everything else I already shared. Moving forward.
Thank you, Katie. Yep. And thanks for all the hard work. You guys have been busy.
Thanks.
Okay, so we're moving on to item F, which is the local early release days for FY21. We kind of already covered this too. Is there more?
Yeah, so that was on the agenda. I asked Diane to put that on the agenda. So we do have local early release days that are SU days on the calendar. We don't have local days. And I had bent David's ear a little bit around negotiations time and asked the question, do you think it's feasible that we all, as you know, Windsor, Mount Escutney, my mistake, has an early release day every Friday. Their whole student body gets out of regular school, I think at 12:30. They do provide options for kids to stay and do an after school program. Some kids choose to go home. So we started talking about, is that something that we want to look at as an SU? Personally, I think that's a hardship on families. I think getting out at 12:30 Friday is a lot of time away from school, although I know they've figured out how to compensate for it. But I just wanted to get your sense of, if an early release day, other school districts release, 30, 45 minutes early, and they start their staff meeting time weekly a little bit earlier. And as you may or may not know, collaboration and meeting time in schools is a precious commodity. We don't have enough time to do the work we need to do. And so I don't know if this is the right year to do it in light of what we're going through. And I haven't really broached it with the staff because I wanted to get a sense of your thoughts around it before I opened up anything. I did reach out to John Leonard at the rec and I said, hey, if we were to release at 2:00 every Friday, is that something that the rec would be able to help us, provide child rec after school care? And he did say yes, and he was, thought it was a good idea. But I'm just thinking about it, want to get a sense of what you think about it. And if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. I totally get it. If it's not, I would love to entertain a couple of early release days, the half days that we typically have. And I know that's a hard feeling as well.
So my first gut reaction, and I guess this is the engineer in me, is like, what are the metrics? Like, so we're asking teachers to meet, and they'll be available to teach students for a little bit less time. And is that meeting time so much more valuable that effectively it improves the student quality, the quality of education throughout the day, so that we're not actually losing any. Yeah.
Well, I guess I failed to mention in my thinking, I would, and I, which is why I haven't really brought it up with the staff yet. And thinking about it, contractually, staff are, there's in Heartland we have a time specific. The day is defined in our contract, and so essentially, could school start 5 minutes earlier every morning and go 5 minutes later each day, Monday through Thursday, to make up that time. And I think it's, I don't know, David, I'd look for your guidance on. Contractually, that works within the time of day staff are asked to be in the building. I don't know what it looks like in terms of, do they have to vote on it? I mean,
does who have to vote on it?
The union. I mean, that it's defined as 7. School starts for the teaching staff at 7:45 and ends at 2:53. I think it's very odd. So if we
about 7 hours and 10 minutes or something roughly.
Like that.
It's crazy.
So right now, the school day starts for students at 8:00. If it started at 7:55, that's within the timeline that they're contractually obligated to be in the school. So is that anything that the union would have something to say about?
Yeah, well, we've been through this before, and because your section of the school day contract states a specific time, I think it is 7:55, and has a specific ending time, which whenever that was negotiated was a big mistake.
7:45 is the beginning time, I believe. 7:45.
And I've worked in a lot of districts, and I've never seen time. Matter of fact, unions themselves don't like to have times spelled out in their contract. They'd rather have length of day, but somehow that got in there years ago, way before I got there. So I think, to answer your question simply, yes, they could have something to say about that. You'd have to get a critical mass to sort of agree to that. Angie can tell you some horror stories. I see hands up, Angie, and
it goes way back, years and years and years. It goes way back, the defined day. So yes, they would have something to say about it.
Well,
Long story short.
I'm not asking to change their defined day.
No, yes, you are, because the expectation of what happens between 7:45 and 8:00 is past practice, and there's been a lot of discussion about how you can use that time. 5 or 6 years ago, when Jeff Marino was principal, he did manage to negotiate an additional 5 or 6 minutes at the end of the day. So the end of the day was 8:53, and if you back up 15 minutes, I think that's what, 8:30. Not 8, 2:35 to 2:53. And he negotiated with the
union an additional 5 or 6 minutes, but it was a process they had to go through.
It can be done. But what, Sarah, you had your hand up and Beth had her hand up, right?
I would just, two things. One is that I think if we were going to introduce half days on Friday, we would need to do some pretty significant sort of laying the groundwork with the parent community and you know, kind of explaining why it's necessary, laying out the conditions. Otherwise, I think there would be significant pushback. I know one of the things that I hear from people about all the time is the noon dismissals, the 3 or 4 or 5, however many we have during the year. I think moving quickly to every Friday would be tough without some significant work on all of our part and some education. And then the other thing, just quickly, is that it's funny that talking about moving the day earlier, because one of the big things that I've heard from people about one of the positives of what's been happening is that kids, some kids anyway, are finally well slept. And the positive effects that we're all seeing, I know I'm seeing this with my kids. It's just amazing to see how much getting enough sleep impacts their learning and their moods and everything. And so I think going earlier might be against some of the sentiment that seems to be out there, at least in my communities.
Yeah, no, agreed. And there's so much research out there on, especially older children, you know, starting later because they just naturally sleep later. Yeah, and just to clarify, I'm not a half day every Friday, and a end of day earlier than they get out now. So at 2 o'clock end time, so that staff meeting could go 2 to 4. So not a full early release, just a
okay.
Yeah, just an additional staff meeting time. But again, yeah, a shortened day. But I get that this, you know, may not be the time to do it, and it is late notice. It just came up. I was hoping. I think David there were some negotiations around school day defined or whatever, but I don't think we have a contract yet anyway. So
it's still on the table.
Still on the table.
Beth's had her hand up for a while. What's up?
So, I mean, my first reaction is like, if the teachers and the administration think this is what they need at this time, then I say we need to support that. Because when we say, oh, maybe it's not the time for it, it may be exactly the time for it. Because when else would we need to have more time to collaborate and work together in the middle of this ridiculousness? So I think just trying to think, is this truly the time to be pushing those boundaries? Because those types of things really need to happen. Yes, it may be a little fight with the union, or it may be a lot of PR work for us in the community, but how, if it truly is something that the staff need to really pull off a successful year next year, then I don't see how we couldn't support it in that way. But that's just me.
Sarah, I have a question for Sarah. Do you think, Sarah, if, going back to what Christine said, if it was a 2 o'clock dismissal one day a week versus a 2, do you think that's a different sell to the community than a 12:30 dismissal, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I misunderstood that. I think that's a very different sell. I still think there needs to be some explanation, but
you need to get the rationale. And I agree with what Beth said too. I think, we may need it more than ever next year, because what I have found that's been so powerful, aside from kids being able to sleep in, but we've had a lot of pod time and collaboration time, right, with our teachers. So we're being able to really do a lot of good kid check-in, a lot of good curriculum check-in, because in schools you just don't get that time. And that's how Tiffany felt at Windsor, and now the whole Mount Scottney district does it. I think the Mount Scottney board is going to begin to pull back a little bit on the 12:30. I think that's there is some community reaction there. I think they may have to step it up a little bit, but they also, for K to 6, they also have, those kids don't go home. They stay there and it's a ton of enrichment in the afternoon. But that's a lot of work, and I think if you could have, a 2 o'clock, or something like that, where you get that hour, that's a nice compromise to start.
Yeah.
So Scott got his hand up.
Yes, please. Yeah, I tend to have very similar feelings on this that Beth does, and one thing that comes up is the how it could coordinate pretty well with, if we get back to what we remember, winter activities that have a Friday. You can have like this early dismissal time that just kind of seamlessly worked for a number of things that happen on Friday, and maybe something in the middle between a Scutney and what we're envisioning. And lastly, I think anything that makes the school districts look and act more similarly is a positive for actually seeing progress in the negotiations process year after year. If we can point to things that are happening in the communities that are similar, and why is it not in the contract?
And we certainly have tried, and it's still on the table. So there may be something coming out of negotiations too.
Well, would the board be okay with me kind of getting a sense of where the staff are at around this idea before we proceed? I mean, if I'm going to hit a roadblock there, I need to know that before we do much legwork. So
yeah, I'm seeing a lot of thumbs up. I think that was actually going to be my first suggestion as well. Is let's see how the staff reacts to this idea, and is it viable? Or are they looking forward to it, or is that no, we're not going to budge on our time?
Okay, I'll do that. Thank you.
Awesome. I'll put in a note that I agree with Beth and Scott that it might be the time that they need this more than ever.
I would agree. I was kind of putting on my parent hat and thinking, oh God, these poor parents that have been our partners for the last 8 weeks and educating them. You know how hard it is. You just heard from a parent tonight, and then saying, well, we need you to shorten a day. Although if there is a place for their children to go, and John, if they use the rec, he's willing to do that. I think it makes it more palatable for families. So.
And my gut, just looking at pickup on, like, if you choose Friday,
mm-hmm.
Friday pickup is a different pickup than any other day.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe to me, that shows that more parents are out and capable of picking up at 2:30. Hopefully they're capable of picking up at 2.
Yeah. Is it busier, the Friday pickup?
It seems
Friday pickup is a zoo.
It seems to be. If you're going away for the weekend, it gives you a little extra time to get going.
Yeah, we've done that.
Yeah. Okay, I will come back and let you know what I find out.
Okay. Awesome.
Just so you know, Nikki, we are going to need an executive session tonight. So just want to make sure you knew that.
Yep. I guess everybody else knows now too.
Everybody
knows. Okay, so let's keep going. Summer meals. I guess
summer meals. So I think it's funny how we kind of covered everything in our COVID update here, but yeah, I think, and Beth clarified that we've gotten one waiver, which is the non-congregate meal piece, but I guess we're still waiting. So I learned something new today too. We're still waiting for the 50% waiver. So yeah, so I think we covered those summer meals. I think we're going to have to do it a little more streamlined. If anybody else had any thoughts about going to less stops, rather than 44 stops, trying to get it down to 3 or 4 within town, do you think centralizing it? Do you think people will access them still?
One thing that I think a lot of families, it will change, is that if summer camps are open, kids just won't be home as much.
No.
And so they'll be at camp. So I think we'll just see a natural drop in probably at least half, just because kids are going to be heading to camp and won't be able to pick up lunches as well. So I think that's kind of a natural progression. I mean, one thing that to ask is really to ask if we offer summer meals, will you take it? You know, because I know if I was asked that, I would be like, probably not. My kids are enrolled in camp all summer if it goes. So trying to suss that out may also give you a better idea, because it's one thing delivering 700 meals across the Heartland over 1 million stops versus, you know, if it's already half that amount, then it makes stops. You know, then it would be, 10 stops, and that would make a lot more sense there. So it might be worth trying to suss that out.
Yeah,
and deliver lunch, Beth? Could a stop be the Heartland Rec summer camp? I mean,
if we can, without a doubt.
Absolutely, yeah. Like if you are summer meals, I mean, you could just automatically make the rec a site no matter what, as long as it's just that whole 50% free and reduced.
Right.
Yeah.
Are they going to? I see Brittany with a hand up, but are they going to run rec programs this summer?
The Heartland Rec is exploring opening. They've actually asked if they can use our fields because they want to be outside. And
Ed was checking on that. Yep.
On that, see if we're allowed to allow that.
Yeah.
At this point, they're closed.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Brittany had her hand up. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was just wondering if there's a way for families to not order daily, but maybe order weekly. So like, oh yeah, we want it this 2 weeks, but not this next week because my kid will be in camp, kind of thing, to allow for a little bit of flexibility, but not cost the school a bunch of money if a family's not going to use the food for a week or 2 weeks. So just something to think about.
Absolutely. And I think the other thing to think about is we don't have to deliver every day. You can deliver a week's worth of lunches once a week. I mean, so there's other delivery methods. You could be giving out half gallons of milk and other, perishables and things, and humps of cheese. We're just going to go dairy, Scott. And
I think that would be huge for families because, it's especially if you're limiting stops, because to get out and to go to that stop might be challenging for a working family, but to go once a week is not as big of a deal. So I think that might be really, really big for a lot of our families.
Yeah. So, some districts are doing twice, like 2 meals in one day. So you're only delivering on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But yeah, we talked, and now we did ourselves, we did this to ourselves, but we hired a purist when we hired Craig, right? So Craig and I talked about this afternoon, and Craig's not crazy about handing out a week's worth of meals because he wants a freshly packed, freshly tasting, well preserved.
Working with him, David, I'm happy to help him and get him some resources, because another thing that a lot of farm to school support is going into is showing how then doing some meal prep videos and how to cook the food that's in your bag, getting recipes and that kind of stuff. So doing a little more public education around that food as well.
Yeah. You might need a little, you've created a monster now because he wants the meal fresh on the day that it is delivered. He did say, however, that summer meals look different than during the school year. He said, we can move away from barbecue chicken and green beans and whatever. He's been serving hot meals, and you don't, especially when you serve a week at a time. Not everybody's got the wherewithal to keep things preserved and then microwave oven. So you got to get a little more creative in how you do it.
The reason why he can't be giving out loaves of bread and gallons of milk like that. It's really saying, and this is the components of the meal that go out.
Yeah.
In the week, and so that's
What about
he could give out the components? Is that what you just said?
I didn't hear you, Brittany.
No, it's okay. David had a question.
Yeah, I had a question. Did you say he could give out just the components? A loaf of bread, a gallon of milk, a rack of cheese, and blah, blah, blah.
There's no reason, no one wants a pre-made week-old ham sandwich, but you can give all the components of it for a ham sandwich for every lunch for the week, and all your fruits and components and large things of milk and stuff like that instead.
So it's sort of like a Green Chef with summer, or whatever. Yeah, I think Craig would need a little bit of and again, part of it is planning on the fly, right? So that, in other words, I think it's great, and we can certainly, I can let them know, that we talked about that tonight, and we've got internal expertise.
I can connect them with folks at Hunger Free that could set them up with menus.
Maybe we'll do it that way then, yeah. Because, I know he's got this picture in his head of what he wants it to look like. Sorry, Brittany, go ahead.
No, but I mean, my husband and I, we got some meals that my son didn't want to eat right away, so we froze them. And know if we're supposed to do that or not, but we did, and it worked out fine. But I don't know if encouraging some families to do that as well. If you don't just say you don't want them because you don't want them that day or whatever, but freeze them and use them for later or whatever.
You don't just eat them? That's what we do.
Yeah, it's awesome. I love it.
My lunch today.
Yeah, and when the ingredients are fresh and they're local and they,
right.
That's what I feel. That's why people are eating these meals, because they look pretty good when they get there. And again, he just wants to preserve that. That's all. But
you can't be passing out a half pound of spring greens for the week and things like that. There's stuff out there that is fresh and delicious that he can certainly go, but it's not going to be homemade lasagna. He's absolutely right.
So his best resource is Hunger Free Vermont, you think, or what's his best resource?
And SNA, school nutrition.
SNA, yeah.
I'll chat. Actually, I have a hunger council meeting tomorrow, I think, and I can connect with them and just see what they're talking about, because there may be other groups of people trying to figure out their own summer delivery like that. And then it's also looking at what does it look like. Could we pair up with other food access groups? Because is there folks with like Meals on Wheels that we could be delivering to, or things like that, to try to get all the food access stuff kind of happening in one point would be pretty awesome.
Yeah. He's done some of that, I know already. Bring even adult meals in places, but yeah. If you could get, let's talk about that. We just met about this today, so.
Hi, Jorgen.
Who's that behind you there?
Here's Torgen.
Okay. And I miss you like a lot.
Okay, buddy.
We'll read her a bedtime story.
It looks like she's grown. She's taller.
Yeah,
she has grown.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, this outfit fit in the fall. Okay, buddy.
Good night, Torgen.
Good night.
Torgen, sleep well.
She's thirsty.
Okay, everybody say bye. Bye. Okay. So I had chucked a retreat on here to talk about. I'm a little nervous about the time at 8:00. So looking for guidance. We could talk about the retreat next time. I do think that we need to have time that we talk less on an agenda and more big picture. But let's revisit the retreat discussion again next meeting. And then the other thing that I added to the agenda while we were talking, because I forgot, a parent raised the issue of algebra with me. And I was wondering, and I'm mainly just checking this out there, I was wondering if anyone in the administration's thoughts about algebra having to be remotely at Windsor has changed now that we've learned how to do remote learning as well as we have.
Go remote. Yeah, that's a good question. Angie, you're probably the one that's most on top of the current algebra situation. Do you know? That's not exactly what Nikki's asking, but where are we in that process right now?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you're asking, Nikki. Is it
some parents approached me about the fact that their kids would have to leave the house at 6:50 to get driven to Windsor for the early morning algebra class, and then they have to get driven to Heartland. So
they were talking about remote. They were talking about a remote, but remember the big one of the reasons.
So
go ahead.
The school day doesn't start. It starts at 7:45, which is the same time the school day starts here.
Yeah, depending on
I
where
mean,
they
at
live.
Heartland. And the reason that the program has to take place in Windsor when we're in school is because we deliver a high school transcript credit, and it can't take place at Heartland Elementary School.
That's what I was going to say. That was the only difference that
right.
we could see that for now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a big number of children that were accepted into the program from Heartland. We've only heard back from a few. They have this week to let us know, or in a few more days, actually.
How many qualified, Angie?
Let me see, just a second.
11 or 13, I can't remember.
Was it 11 or 12? It's a bright group, huh? Good mathematical group.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13.
Yeah, that's a big group.
And they all move in a pack.
12.
That they do. Yeah.
12. Yeah, it's a big group.
Yeah, because we even talked about, Nikki, with a group that big, you almost got an algebra class at Heartland, but then again, you can't transcript that on a high school transcript. And we did get sort of a little bit of an esoteric email from somebody at Hartford that talked about how you can offer 8th graders algebra, but we'll decide whether it's a high school credit or not when they get here. And that's the problem we've been up against right along. But I will tell you right now that if we send a Windsor high school transcript with that name on it, they've got to accept that credit, just like they would if the student were moving in from Chicago, or if it's a high school transcript, it's a high school transcript. So therein lies the difference. It may not be that important to parents, and most kids probably do get the credit when they get there, but the high school doesn't have to give it to them.
So I think the 6:50, Nikki, is, I think the bus pickup in Heartland is 6:50.
Yeah.
And then the class doesn't start until, I think, 7:45, and they are bused back to Heartland, so the parents don't have to transport them back. But
This year, from what I understand, when we were going to school, very early on, the algebra kids that were coming in on the bus early asked if they could come up to class early, and Tammy Psyche, who's the teacher, welcomed them. So then they got some additional help and support during that time that before class started, if they were there early.
How many kids from Wethersfield, Angie?
Just a moment.
I just want to know not that we have to take a lot of time. How many?
3.
Oh, there are only 3. Boy, that's interesting, huh? Last year, Wethersfield had the big number in Heartland, right? Isn't that the way it worked last year? Or?
Wethersfield had 6 last year, and Heartland had 3.
Yeah,
Windsor has 10. Windsor had more last year.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, but anyhow, that's the simple answer, Nikki. But who knows?
They do schedule it, David, so that, because I mean, if you totaled that up, that's like a lot of kids, 10 plus 13 plus 3. Yeah. So but they schedule it for some of the Windsor kids to take it at a different time. So
that's correct.
Because they have flexibility in their day, they do have to offer it first period for Heartland and Wethersfield students.
That's correct. I don't know whose hand I saw first, Sarah or Colleen, but
go ahead, Colleen.
Have you talked at all with Windsor about an online? If we're at home, will the class be offered online?
That's how they're proceeding now.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure that would happen, Colleen.
Sorry, go ahead, Colleen.
And then what's our goal? I know that it's the kids were having trouble with their starting point at Hartford.
Yeah, or other high schools, yeah.
Or other high schools.
Yeah.
So they'd be starting at this Algebra 1 level versus Algebra 2, or?
Right. If they can go into high school with Algebra 1 credit on the transcript, then they jump right to geometry. Then they can go to
geometry.
Then they can go to Algebra 2, Then they can go to fundamentals or trigonometry. Then they can get their calculus in. And you see, they can do that. And by their senior year, then they're able to do all kinds of dual enrollment stuff at
Right, college stuff.
and really start to do the college stuff. Whereas if they've got to, depending on whether the high school is semester or full year, if they don't go in with the algebra credit, they do get, and for a lot of these kids, they are mathematically minded and engineering minded, and it just keeps them accelerated. You know, I remember this used to come up a lot, right? But there's another one. Yeah, but that's a good question, Colleen. That was the problem, was to keep them accelerated and to also give them high school credit.
And I know, you know, I should know as a parent of two of these guys, but I understood that basically, but I just wanted to kind of clarify it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's changed since I was in high school, and in the sense that you wanted to be in that advanced class so that you didn't have to pay for the remedial math in college.
Right. And we've got kids in high school right now, and I'm sure it's at Hartford, but we've got kids at Windsor that are going to start college with a full year under their belt. So they're going to go in as sophomores because they've been able to accelerate so much. That's that early admissions program and the dual enrollment program. And it's real. I wish it was around when I was a kid, because it could have saved a year of tuition.
It saved me a year on my last kiddo.
Did it really?
Right. It's about money at the that's what we've been kind of chasing is.
Sarah had a hand up. I didn't mean to interrupt you, Sarah.
So I just had a quick, it might be worthwhile just thinking about that, even if we are back in school in the fall, you know, things are going to be very tight, and we're going to be keeping kids in small groups, and there are going to be all these protocols that might preclude having kids on buses going between Heartland and Windsor. So we may just want to think about that we have a backup plan for algebra. If in fact we're back, it's in a weird way, if we're remote, it's easier because then everybody's remote. But if we're back, I suspect it would be very difficult to safely have kids going back and forth between the schools. So
another bridge to
that
cross.
would be true for all students who take a bus too.
Yeah, we have a lot of kids on those buses. Yeah, but it's a good thing to, part of our thinking, as we say.
Yeah. To go back to why starting algebra in 8th grade is also important is a lot of the engineering schools, when they design their curriculum, because engineers tend to be good at math, they assume that you're coming in with a full year of math already under your belt. And so a lot of the engineering curriculums, you actually have to add extra coursework onto your degree. And engineers are already required to take 5 courses a term anyway because of their extra requirements. And so that's why I thought it was so critical that we offer that to our students.
Well, let's see. It'll be part of our summer planning, but it was a good question, Nikki.
Yeah, it was one that was raised to me from a parent today. I won't take credit for it. Okay, so we need to set the next agenda. Unless nobody has. Okay, moving on. So setting the next agenda, I think we have a COVID update. I think
discussing the retreat would be good, because we could put a lot of time into the big picture stuff.
Yeah, that's what I think we need. So we've got COVID retreat. I think we're going to have hires. Hopefully we'll be done with resignations, but maybe we'll leave the title the same.
Yeah, no count on it.
Yeah, if we put the resignations there, hopefully it'll only go one way. I want another financial. I feel like this is going to look exactly the same, a statewide update.
Yeah. And actually that's we could make that part of the COVID update, actually.
Yeah. And then summer meals.
Yeah, that'll be good.
And Christine, you can update on the local.
Yeah.
Want to put the release day on there, Christine?
Yep. I'll bring you back what I find out.
Okay, so release day.
That decision should be made soon.
Yep. Okay, Katie, do you think we need a special education update? I feel like we can add it in if you need to give it to us.
Come up under the hiring, maybe. Are you using that Command D?
You're here.
Maybe it's the hour too. Maybe a couple minutes. I don't think there'll be much changes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's been sort of status quo.
Okay.
But I'll anyway.
Okay. So Diane, it sounds like a copy paste schedule with retreat added early in the discussion before we burn out. Okay. So I feel like there's something I was going to say I'm missing, but it's gone. So Scott.
Yes. Are we part of a virtual graduation?
I would love you to be part of the virtual graduation. We're trying to figure out the logistics of the actual hangout meeting like this. And I think, typically a board member helps hand out the diplomas. And so we're going to do that virtually. They're going to be mailed ahead of time and we will be giving out awards. So yeah. So if you would, you're all invited, obviously, to come.
And the parade afterwards, it would be great to have them there too.
Yeah, while we're on that, Nikki, I have you. I was going to ask if we could have some fire trucks in our parade on that day. Okay. And I have reached out to Paul, Officer Paul. He's going to come. So he'll be there.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So good. Okay.
Are you going to use Zoom or Google Hangout?
Well, Larry tells me that we can do a live stream in Hangouts, so we're going to test that out. And I ran into, and I don't know, the other night when I met with the 8th grade parents, half of them couldn't get in, and I think it's because they don't have Gmail accounts. But
yeah,
Larry thinks that Google Hangouts is fixing that, so we'll see. It'll be one or the other. Zoom is, in my opinion, Zoom is way better.
Yeah, I do like Zoom, although I'm gotten pretty used to this too.
But you can annotate. You can go to breakout rooms. You can. There's
a lot more control to present and mute microphones if people go off the wall. Yep.
And you can have a co-host.
And you can have a co-host or three, I think, up to three.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll figure it out. But I'll let you know. Yes, absolutely. Scott, that was a great question.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, so we need to move to an executive session. David, do you want to title the executive session?
Yeah, I think it'll be personnel and contract negotiations. Okay. I don't think, Katie, you do not need to stay. Angie, you do not need to stay. Christine, maybe for the first few minutes you should stay. Okay. And Diane, you also can leave. So did somebody make a motion for Diane's sake to go in?
Yeah, who wants to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Sarah made a motion. Scott seconds. Okay, and David, that's when you turn. Oh, well,
yeah, I'm going to turn once we vote on that motion. I'll turn them.
Everybody in favor of going into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Your head. Aye. Okay. All those opposed? No. Okay. So David can turn off the microphone.
And Diane, we'll get you the closing time, adjourn time.
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks, Diane. Thanks, Diane.
Stop recording.
Okay. Thanks.